I don't know how many people that are watching this wear do-rags, but I've tied my do-rag too tight. Hold on. Guys, it's been a long time now. We're basically nearly at 1.5, but we hit 1,000K. We hit hold on. Did I just say 1,000K? Sorry, we hit 1K. It's the do-rag, I'm telling you. Yeah, man. I thought I'd just do a little video because you lot don't know me. Like, I had a little side channel that is on the back burner just because I'm dedicated most of my time to this channel. But you guys, you don't really know me. So I just thought 1K, why not give you a little, you know what's funny? This is quite spontaneous, and so I haven't had time to ask for questions to answer in this video. So I made up my own questions to ask myself. If you have additional questions that I don't get to, you can answer in the comments. I will be selective. But you never know, I might reply. But yeah, man, before we get into Nosferatu and the Brutalist, I just thought I'd first of all say thank you for 1K. Listen, I'm one of the most organized, precise people. And so when I was planning, when I was starting this channel and I was doing the planning, I'm telling you, I had numbers down of what I was expecting. And I was not expecting to have reached 1K in 3 months. So thank you to everyone that has subscribed, everyone that's subscribed on Patreon, all the frequent commenters. I'm starting to learn some of your names. I love it, I love it, love it. Thank you. But yeah, man, I guess, who am I? Who am I? That is a philosophical question. My name is Joshua Kwesi, Parkwesi. I don't know, you can choose one. I am of Ghanaian origin. Both my parents were born in Ghana. I was born in the UK. That's where my name comes from, Parkwesi, but you can just call me PK or Kwesi, or you can just go by my English or Hebrew name or Christian name, Joshua. It's up to you, whatever. Why did I start this channel? It's overdue. I mean, the most comprehensive answer to this question is probably in my About Me or like bio section on my YouTube page. But really and truly, it was just overdue. I've had, well, to be honest, all my friends have been on my case to have started this like a while ago. But I have one friend in particular that genuinely has been on my case for, no, actually, wait, there's two specifically that more than the others have just been on my neck. And that's Anesu and that's Nana. They have been pestering me to start this for more than 5 years. Funny thing is, as you guys can tell, I haven't seen a whole bunch of movies. All the movies that you would say are iconic and are the greatest movies of all time, I promise you, I have not seen majority of them. However, in most of my friendship groups, if there's anyone who's gonna talk about film and TV, it's me. I love breaking down film. I love discussing themes. I love breaking down characters. I love trying to understand what the filmmaker's intent was behind the film. Which I guess kind of goes into like, what are my intentions for this channel? Honestly, I really don't want to be just another react channel. Like, guys, there are so many react channels. And don't get me wrong, I love watching people react to some of my favorite TV shows, movies of all time, because it's the closest thing that I can get to my original experience and shock or love of those movies, etc. However, I don't want to be so reliant on other people's content to give you something. Like, I want to give you my own perspective, which is why in a lot of the videos, like, I don't just sign off after watching and I've just given you like my little reaction. For me, the focus of these videos is really those last 10 to 15 minutes where I discuss, I break down, what's the theme, what's the message, what am I supposed to take away, what was the intent, did it work, etc. That's really the lane I want to sit in. Majority of my audience is US based. Like, I think it's like 50 to 60%. How often you guys come across a Black, British, Ghanaian guy talking about film? I don't know. I wouldn't think so much. I mean, till today, you still hear people say like, oh, I didn't even know there was Black people like that in the UK, which is crazy to me. But if I can offer a different perspective based on my life, based on my experiences, I'd love that. But yeah, anyway, who is my favorite actor and actress? Actor right now is quite clear, it's Daniel Kaluuya. Actress is a lot harder. But you know, I'm gonna go, because I went contemporary with the actor, I'm gonna go old school with the actress and say Julie Andrews. Listen, when I was much younger, my grandma, she traveled to the UK to stay with us as both my parents were working. And so for about 2 to 3 years, she would look after us while my parents went to work. She loved Julie Andrews. She loved The Sound of Music, and it rubbed off on us. I say us, I have one sister. Who is my favorite director? Denis Villeneuve. If you haven't heard me mention Dune too much, I will talk about Dune wherever I can talk about Dune. Dune Prophecy we won't speak about, but 4 movies that tell you about me. These are not my top 4 movies of all time. 4 movies that tell you about me. The Incredibles, Mrs. Doubtfire, Dune Part 2, and Parasite. What TV shows am I watching right now? I am watching Silo Season 2, which is terrible. I'm watching The Traitors, which is my favorite reality TV show of all time. But I think I've watched every single version. I've watched the Canadian version, I watched the British version, which is on right now. The US version just started. I've watched both Australia and New Zealand. The only one that I can't access is the original Dutch version, which is just, I cannot find online anywhere. What else am I watching? I'm currently watching Slow Horses, I'm on season 2. I'm watching Lioness, I'm on season 2. And I'm patiently waiting for Severance season 2 to start in a couple of weeks. You know, I'd love to react to television on this channel, but I've just realized, like, I don't have the setup or time to do television on this channel right now. It's a lot more demanding. And because of the time zones, the timing of when they drop in America versus when they drop in the UK, like we kind of get shafted on this side with that. But I don't know. We'll see. Daredevil is on my radar. I'm tossing it up. We'll see. Last question. My ultimate dream for this channel would be, firstly, I would like to start getting people on this channel because I'm solo dolo, but I have many friends who I'd love to sit down and have them watch movies that I've already watched. For example, or TV. For example, I have this one friend who has never watched, he don't like sci-fi, he don't like fantasy, he doesn't really care for superhero movies or any of that stuff. I want him to sit down and watch Game of Thrones from beginning to end and go through all the pain, all the suffering, and that conclusion. I need it so bad. But you know what I'd really love to start doing? I'd love to start talking to people in the industry on this channel. Like, I'm blessed enough to be in reach of central London, that I can attend early screenings, premieres. Oftentimes you'll bump into people. Like, I guess the advantage is, for example, if you're based in the US and you make the same content that I make, it's probably best if you are, for example, LA or New York based, because that's where all the access is. So if you're like in, I don't know, Idaho or like Wisconsin, I don't know why I picked those 2 places, but your access is limited. For me, being so close to London, if a movie wants to do a European premiere, it will be in London. And the UK is already small. So, I mean, regardless where you are in the UK, it's probably going to be accessible to you. But I'm literally 30 minutes to an hour away. So, I mean, we're going to get to The Brutalist in a second, but just when I went to the screening of The Brutalist, I bumped into Sir Alistair from Game of Thrones. He was at the screening. A few years ago when I went to the premiere for The Kingsman, I met Bob Iger. So yeah, man, I'd eventually like to start taking advantage of that, start having conversations, and hopefully, this would be a dream, but start having conversations with people in the industry on this channel. That's like the longest of long-term goals, but we'll pray it into existence. But yeah, man, that's a bit about me. Not too much, but it's a little. But let's get into these 2 movies which I've seen. The first being Nosferatu. Now, Nosferatu, yeah. You know what's funny? I was actually going to do a written review for Nosferatu, and then I watched the film, and I was like, what was I thinking? I've said it on this channel multiple times. I'm not a horror guy. I'm not. I certainly didn't grow up on horror. Things that are less horror, I was not even exposed to, let alone horror, the actual genre itself. So I just don't have the language, the means, the experience to sit down and write a review about that film. But I did enjoy. I say enjoy. I don't I don't come out of a horror movie ever thinking, I had a great time. That was lovely. Yeah, let's do that again. I really genuinely don't. More time when I go to see horror, I want to understand like the deeper meaning behind what is being presented as a horror. Like oftentimes there's another layer. It's not just jump scares, etc. But then also there's the performances, the direction, the visuals. Really and truly, when I go to see horror, that's what I'm trying to take away. And in all those categories, Nosferatu was fantastic. I'm already a fan of Robert Eggers. I love The Northman. That's one of my favorite movies of the last, 5 years. So I was always going to watch this film regardless of what genre it was. Nosferatu is a gothic horror type movie about a young woman played by Lily Rose Depp and this vampire who's very much Dracula, who is infatuated with her. In his obsession and drive to get to her, he just leaves some serious horror in his wake. Let me just kick off with the performances in this movie because I don't think we will see any nominations across the board for this movie, even though I think they should. But I mean, horror doesn't really fare well at the Oscars. I think if it gets one nomination, it will probably be cinematography, which we'll get to. But Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, who is on a crazy run right now, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, Willem Dafoe, those five actors in this film, I could not give a note, give a criticism to any of them. I think the performances in this movie are stellar. Not only are there a ton of extreme emotions that Lily Rose Depp has to portray in this film, physically, she has to do some quite chaotic things that she just does excellently. Nicholas Hoult, I'm coming back to again. There's a scene in the castle where he meets with Nosferatu for the first time, and the camera's just on his face, and the fear in his face. You know what? I probably looked like that in the cinema because I hate horror, but I was so shook for him in that moment, purely because of the fear I could see in his face. I'm telling you guys, like Nicholas Hoult, he's on a serious run. Oh my gosh, I forgot Bill Skarsgård when I was talking about the cast. I forgot the villain. Bill Skarsgård, from the physicality, the imposing nature of the character he's playing, the voice, the accent, you would have no idea this is Bill Skarsgård. And I know he's picking up a reputation for playing these transformative villains, first with It and now with Nosferatu. If this is the lane he wants to be in, I don't have a problem because he's ridiculously good at it. Let's jump into the cinematography because I don't know if you guys remember, but in The Northman, there's this one scene. Well, there's many scenes, but there's quite an infamous scene where the camera tracks from within like some woodlands and then moves onto a body of water like a river, and then it turns and like tracks a boat, like a little boat that has about 12 men rowing. Between Eggers and his partner in crime, Jarin Blanchard, their cinematography duo, their visual partnership is absolutely insane. And I know I call everything insane, but it's so good. The way they use the camera in this movie to build tension, there's a lot of times where Nosferatu, back to the scene in the castle, Nosferatu hasn't been necessarily revealed in full to the audience yet. And the way they use the camera and Nicholas Hoult to build suspense and to build fear because you are unclear about who this is, what they're doing, what they look like. There's just these very slow tracking shots, and Nosferatu appears and disappears, and you're not sure what's going on. Like, you feel like you're there and you feel the fear because of the way they use the camera. In terms of the story, this film has a lot to do with fear of the unknown. This is an era where people are very skeptical about mysticism, etc. And a lot of these people and some of the characters, specifically the character that Aaron Taylor Johnson plays, are sometimes in denial to their own detriment about what is happening. And the movie explores that. There's also this complex, weird relationship between Lily Rose Depp's character and Nosferatu. There's an obsession, but you feel there's desire, but at times it feels like there's an element of SA. And the movie makes you question where that line is and who wants what. I'm trying not to say too much without spoilers. Like, at times you feel like certain characters have lost agency, and other times you feel like there is some desire involved. Like I said, I can't say too much about this one because this is not my bag. This is not my ministry, but it was a fantastic movie. Now let's get on to The Brutalist. Oh my goodness. So yes, as I said, I managed to get a ticket to an early 70mm preview of The Brutalist. And truth be told, this is my introduction to Brady Corbett. I have not seen any of his other movies, but this is his third movie. And oh my days, this movie is quite a behemoth. I mean, it feels like a movie made by someone who is much further down the line in their directing career than someone who's on their third movie. The Brutalist tells the story of Laszlo Toth, played by Adrian Brody, who is a Hungarian-born Jew who has been scarred by the Holocaust, and he resettles in the United States. Upon arrival in America, he moves in with his cousin and manages to bag a job at his furniture shop. They are then commissioned to redesign the library of a very wealthy businessman, Harrison Lee Van Buren, who is played by Guy Pearce. And that is where everything just gets a bit chaotic. But just going back to the opening of this film, the first 10 minutes of this film will tell you what kind of film you're watching. Like, the 10 minutes is essentially his escape. I can call it an escape. His escape from Hungary to the US, his arrival in the US to the New York harbor. And in those 10 minutes, the visuals and also the score has these like blaring horns that feel like kind of triumphant. Like you're watching, I don't know, some sort of superhero moment, but also they're quite ominous. Like they could also be the trumpets as Jesus comes or something like that. But in that moment, you immediately like, this movie is long and you know that going in, but you hear in those 10 minutes, you're like, okay, this is something. This is not just any old movie that just decided to be 3 hours for no reason. Like the movie makes you feel that way. This movie is essentially at its core, it's a dissection of the American dream and what that means, what that is, all from the lens of an immigrant. The film is split almost directly into two. And in the first part of this film, very much focused on Laszlo Toth and his gratitude for just being here in the US. He's landed in the US. Things are not going well. There's a situation with the job he's been commissioned to do. There's a situation at home with his cousin and his cousin's wife. And yet through all of that, you still feel like, and this is a big credit to Adrian Brody and his very nuanced performance. You still feel like Laszlo Toth is very much grateful just to be here, given what he's been through. He doesn't complain. He just takes things as they come. He's very patient with others. He's very kind to others, regardless of a lot of the nonsense that is being thrown at him at this time. Like he's leaving behind a life where he had a great career, great accomplishments. He's left his status as a respected modern architect. And yet in the US, he appears just very content with the situation and his current circumstances. Adrian Brody could seriously win an Oscar for his performance. The second part is truly where the hits the fan. The second part, I feel, is like where the veil is lifted and we truly get into the breakdown of the American dream. In part two, Laszlo Toth's wife, Ezra, played by Felicity Jones, and his late sister's daughter, Zofia, played by Rafi Cassidy, they finally managed to arrive in the US with the help of Harrison Lee. And you can see that time and distance has fractured that home, that unit between the three of them. The second part of this film is for Ezra and for Felicity Jones. Well, obviously the other characters are still very much present, but if I was to give the first half of this movie to Adrian Brody, the second half of this film for me is definitely Felicity Jones's. Really and truly, she's the emotional, moral center of this entire film. Without her character, I don't think this film works, especially the second half. Now, with our antagonist, Mr. Van Buren, when you first meet him, you'll understand when I say this if you've watched the film or when you do watch the film. There's no mistaking what kind of person he is. I want to be clear on that, especially me being who I am. However, there is an act that's been somewhat put on, maybe not very well. But I'm saying this about the character, not as a criticism of the film. The second part just removes that completely. The character stops caring, and so we can just look at him as exactly who he is. All the pretense has gone. What Corbett sought to do with this character is for Harrison Lee Van Buren to be the representation, to be emblematic of America and the American dream within this movie. In that both Harrison and America have appeared or have presented itself as virtuous and or progressive. And yet, over the course of the film, you can see there's a struggle to suppress this nature, this exploitative, subjugating nature, which has been hidden beneath. And all credit goes to Corbett Corbett in his direction and his partner Mona, who I believe they co-wrote this movie together. But also the cinematographer, Lol Crawley. Lol is a hilarious name. I think he's named Laurie Crawley, but I call him Lol for short. Alongside the performances, that trio, I mean, the cinematography in this film, that specifically, there's a couple of scenes. They're both in the back half of this movie. One where they travel to Italy to look at some marble for a building that Harrison has commissioned Laszlo to build for him. And something very drastic happens. But prior, there's a contrast between these very beautiful, stunning visuals of this quarry, only for a few minutes later, you to be sat there in absolute disgust. And then there's another scene, which is kind of the final scene of the actual movie itself. I can't say too much about that one, but they're essentially you're seeing people walk around this building. The score is going and the visuals are going. I'm, I'm not explaining it properly, but I don't want to because I want people to experience it. But it really was breathtaking. My main criticism of this movie, it's the epilogue. Yes, there's an epilogue. So after the two parts, which are the actual movie, there's an epilogue that just feels tacked on and adds context that I don't think is necessary. I don't believe it adds much value to the movie. Some of the things that they state and make fact for you, you could have just used your own brain to assume, or I question whether you needed to assume it wasn't necessary. I don't think so. And then they finish up with a line that just, I don't know what its purpose was. For me, it's not a line that is completely aligned with what I felt this story was. Maybe it's because I took something else from this film that the writers and the directors weren't intending. But to me, I was just like, why is this here? It's not that long. I mean, it's 5 minutes, but this movie's already 205 minutes without an intermission. Just give people 5 minutes back. The film is fine without it. But yeah, I guess that's it. That's an intro to me. That's Nosferatu. That is The Brutalist. I'd recommend you guys check out both those films when they get wide. Well, Nosferatu is already out for wide release, but The Brutalist hopefully gets a wide release if and when it does or when it comes online. I know it seems long, but it is a really good movie. Thank you for watching, guys. Please subscribe, like, all that stuff. Peace.